Hello, Dr. Uche, dialing back again today to discuss a book with you. Thank you for joining me. If you are on YouTube, please be sure to hit subscribe and also hit the notification bell so that you know when I upload new videos. I am so excited today. I happen to be in Barbados, so I'm enjoying the lovely weather and the climate and the roar of the ocean just right over there. I am also reading. So I took this with me and I finished reading this in 2 days of obviously being on vacation, not having to work, and being on a very slow sort of routine. On Rotation by Shirlene Obuobi. On Rotation, Shirlene Obuobi. I loved reading this book. It was heartwarming, very touching. It is romance, and it all revolves around a young girl in her 20s, a young woman in her 20s in medical school, a Ghanaian American medical student called Angie Appiah. I believe the pronunciation is Appiah. She basically just went by Angie in this book. And it's all about her discovering herself, making her way through her third year clinical rotations, trying to navigate friendship and love and family dynamics and expectations, and meeting people and trying to find her own way and trying to establish what matters to her, even in a relationship, trying to figure out who she loves amidst the turmoil of going through a very difficult phase in her life. It just so happens the first clinical year in med school can be challenging. I could really relate with this. Being a doctor, I hadn't realized how so many things we take for granted are actually not normal. So she would very quickly explain what it means to have a clinical rotation and so many other terms we get very familiar with going through medical training. And I hadn't realized, oh my God, I hadn't realized that is not usual stuff in the real world. I've been in medicine my entire adulthood. But in any case, I want to tell you a little bit of the story, and I hope it will inspire you to read it. Many, many, many thanks again to Shirlene and her publishing agent who sent me a free copy of this book. I'm so grateful. I'm so happy I was able to read this book, and it really touched, and I couldn't put it down. I read in 2 days, 2 straight days. I kept at it till I finished it. So as I said, this is all about Angie Appiah. Is a Ghanaian American girl, or I should call her a young woman really, going through med school, raised in the US. This book made it seem like she was probably born in Ghana and came with her parents, and then practically grew up in Chicago. So she has a young sister, Tabs, and she has a circle of friends, her sanity circle. A friend, Michelle, in med school as well. Nia, a friend from middle school who is not in medicine in this book. A friend, Marcus, a very good friend of hers. And she had just broken up with a man called Frederick near the beginning of the book. I think she tells us the story of how she broke up with Frederick. And this book is very much about chasing after love and trying to figure all that out. So she breaks up with Frederick. She's going through a very difficult spell. She takes the STEP exam. A STEP exam in med school, in the US medical system anyway, is a very important exam. Step 1 basically focuses on the preclinical subjects: anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. I think pharmacology may be in step 1, and a variety of things you do in the first 2 years of med school. So she takes that exam and she doesn't do too well. Yes, she does pass the exam, but it's important to do really, really well if you want to go into some really competitive specialties. And that is if you are a U.S. medical student, okay? Because the other story will take another day and a half. If you're a foreign medical student, no matter how well you do, it is challenging to get into some specialties. But whatever the case, she takes it. She doesn't really ace it as she thought she would have. So that's going on. She gets dumped by this Frederick of a guy. And the other thing going on is a little bit further into the book, she has a very bitter misunderstanding with Nia, her longtime bestie from middle school. Turns out Nia is going through her own life drama, actually, is really what came in the way. Yes, it was a difficult time for both young women, but with her going through a lot of stuff, I think it just kind of drove a wedge in between them. So something they might have figured out easily just kind of blew out of proportion. But whatever the case, she has these three straws against her. On top of that, her parents are being very difficult. Her younger sister is getting engaged, and her parents are going on and on about how she didn't do well in some exam and whatnot and whatnot. And yeah, that was a difficult time for her. So somehow during this very difficult spell, she bumps into this guy, Ricardo. This guy is Hispanic. And this book becomes all about her and Ricky, their relationship, how it grew and blossomed. Oh my God, there was so much ups and downs, and at times being sure, at times not being sure, breaking up so many times, getting into arguments because they couldn't understand each other. Some girl, Camilla, who Ricky was dating before, who he then he broke up with Camilla, and then realized at some point that Camilla was pregnant, and there was a little bit of drama to figure out that it wasn't actually his baby, and it came in between Ricky and Angie again. But you know, it was one thing after the other, topsy-turvy. But I love how the book wraps up. Eventually this young couple find a way to figure it all out, and they're very much on the same page, and it's match day. If you're not in medicine, match day in the US is a day a medical student or a graduating medical student finds out where they're going to be for residency. And they have this system whereby they're given envelopes, and at one particular time they told, go ahead and open your envelopes, and everybody has to open it. And you find out at that moment that of 10-15 places you interviewed, this place chose you and you chose them, so you made a match. This is where you're going. You're going to be in Seattle, Chicago, Florida. You know, you have a list of places that you could match at, because they're the places you interviewed and ranked, right? But you don't know which one it will be. So it's quite a celebration for graduating U.S. medical students. But then, of course, some people don't get where they want, and so it's not a happy day for everyone. But this book ends with a depiction of match day, and how it turns out that where she matches is also a place where Ricky has a job offer. You know, this guy is so sweet. He's working behind his girl, and she's looking to match in one of several places, and he's looking for jobs in those same places, so that no matter where she matches, it's actually going to work. I loved how this book is all touchy-feely, but it also doesn't shy away from some hardcore issues in our world. It talks about interracial dating, intercultural dating. It talks about the challenges of a black womanhood. Let's put it that way. A young black woman growing up as an ethnic minority, and the things that come up on the dating scene. And she talks a lot about that. It also talks about the sad aspect of minorities not always being trusting of the medical institution, not trusting their physicians. There is historical basis for that, as we all know. Well, I think it is a fact. It is reality. There is historical basis for that. And she goes into researching that area, decides it's going to be something she's going to do some work in, sort of assessing the factors behind trust for medical institution or lack thereof by people of African American ancestry. So that's something she's working on in this book, and she presents the research proposal, and they get a grant, they get IRB approval. And so there's a lot of good things that happen near the end of this book. I highly recommend On Rotation by Charlene Obuobi. On Rotation. I love this book. I demolished it in 2 days. This is more reminiscent of my usual pre-busy life when I could read huge books in 1 day. That is just me. I've always been a voracious reader. So I was able to get through this in 2 days, even with paying attention to my kids, taking them to the pool, taking them to the beach, and making sure I eat and hydrate. It's very hot and humid here, but it is really beautiful. Loving my time in Barbados, and I'll always remember this book. This will always be a reminder. And see, even my nails are looking blue like the book. Like her blue scrubs. I highly recommend this. I hope you might consider reading it. This is On Rotation by Charlene Obuobi. I believe it is her debut novel. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you when I come back, either to review a work of fiction or for a children's book read aloud, or to give writing tips, especially for biographies. Take care, tada! I hope you're well wherever you are, and I'll see you next time. Bye!